what can I say? Woo! We hit 100,000. Now we got to go for 200,000 and actually 2 million. Because what's 3%? I think what's 3% of 8.4 billion? That's what we're shooting for. So thank you very much before we get started today for all of you out there that helped us reach this milestone. I appreciate it so much. Thank you. Well, the whole team appreciates it. So, all right. Well, we've got to have this conversation because it's not about theory anymore. It's about shock waves. And I know more than likely everybody is familiar with what's happening in Venezuela because overnight the global chessboard shifted. A U.S. strike on Venezuela and the capture of Nicolas Maduro and his wife, suddenly a country long written off as a failed state is back at the center of global attention. And quite honestly, the consequences will go very far beyond its borders. Now, this is not about a judgment one way or the other. I am staying politically neutral, but this will have impact. We don't even know the impact, and we probably won't for the next number of years see the full impact of this. But moments like this, they only happen locally, and then they ripple through many markets, and Venezuela so heavily in the energy markets, the currencies, the alliances, and the investor confidence. This is all impacted worldwide. And they force an really uncomfortable question. What actually happens to the world economy when not just a regime fails, but have we shifted from a rule of law to a rule of might? Because over this weekend, the U.S. executed, it was incredible what they did, a lightning-fast military operation in Caracas. Explosions lit up the night sky. And by the way, tomorrow you're going to hear an interview with our friend Javier, who is in Panama, but he is Venezuelan. His mom and his friends still live there. And so it was great that he came in and had this conversation with us today, because this isn't just another geopolitical headline and then we ignore it. This is a removal of the sitting head of state, something the world has rarely seen in modern slides. But we are going to start with what's happening in the spot markets, because in reaction, the stock markets are up. The spot gold and the spot silver markets are also up. I really didn't have time to do a whole lot because I wanted to capture where we were in this. But that's what's happening in the spot markets. And before I came on, we were up, I think, another $40 on spot gold, and I think another $7 or $8 on spot silver. So we'll see, because remember, this only pushes us technically further away from that 200-day moving average. And I know I'm being a pain in the neck and very redundant about it. It's just, if you understand what could happen, if it does happen, you don't lose sight of what is in reality actually happening. So the prices can stay up here, which is what's been happening, and allowing that 200-day moving average to work off that overbought, not overvalued, overbought circumstances. But let's move on with what's really going on and impacting these prices, because quite honestly, the U.S. attacked Venezuela, captures them, and now they are standing trial in New York. Now, frankly, President Trump didn't mince any words. In his press conference, he said that the U.S. would run Venezuela temporarily, and now that's been walked back. But you can see that he is actually not working with the opposition party, but the vice president under Maduro, so that same party remains in power. It's really interesting, because he even warned Venezuela's interim leader that if she didn't do what's right, she would pay a very big price. And so it looks like she's negotiating. This looks awfully familiar to things that have happened in the past if we are actually going to try and run Venezuela. I don't know what's going to happen yet. We're going to see, quite honestly. But safe and proper and judicious transition, let's hope that it is a safe and proper and a judicious transition and more things don't happen after that. Because the last time we went in and did the same kind of thing, that was Iraq, which 2003 to 2011 and frankly beyond, and that was a complete regime change. And then additionally, we've got to ask Panama. That happened in Panama not that long ago. So let's just stick to what's happening in Venezuela right now because we don't know what the ultimate outcome is going to be. But it does prompt questions from Congress because, quite honestly, Congress was not informed prior to that. So there is a legal question, and we're going to see. I mean, they can't undo anything that's happened that I can see, but we'll find out. And again, listen to that interview tomorrow because Javier is an attorney, and he's an international attorney. So he knows much more about this, frankly, than I did. Or than I do, but interesting to watch history unfold because it makes a whole lot of sense that we're having a monetary regime shift, but isn't it much bigger than that? We are having a transfer of power and even the way things are taken over. We could not be living in a more interesting time, and it could certainly tell you why you need to have physical gold and silver in your possession. Because the world, frankly, is shocked and still in shock. And we're seeing from, some countries and some people think that it was great. Some people are calling for condemnation. And frankly, across the world, leaders, they responded with a mixed shock, condemnation, and strategic silence, waiting to see what's really happening. Countries like Colombia expressed deep concern and called for the UN to convene on that. And we've seen President Trump say, Colombia, you're one of the next ones, although it looks like Greenland might even be next, and let alone Iran. Russia and Iran condemned the action outright, but of course they are allies to Venezuela. So international organizations emphasize respect for international law. So it'll be interesting to see when there is this pushback and we go to court over it, what will prevail. Though I don't know how they could undo, what would they put Nicolas Maduro back in power again? I don't think so. We're just going to have to watch this unfold. Because let's take a look at the allies that have actually condemned the actions. And of course, you need to be aware of this. Cuba, Colombia, Brazil, Russia, Iran, China. Not a surprise. These are the allies. So we're looking at a rather, bifurcated world in this. But even the United Nations leadership warned that it sets a very dangerous precedence. And that's really what I'm looking at too. What is that precedence? This is not a small list. It really signals a global divide that, frankly, are going to shape markets and alliances we're going to see in the long term, but even in the weeks ahead. From the president, from President of Brazil, Lula, well, he definitely condemned this. That's right next door to Venezuela. But the bombings on Venezuelan territory and the capture of its president cross an unacceptable line. These acts represent a most serious affront to Venezuela's sovereignty and yet another extremely dangerous precedent for the entire international community. Attacking countries in flagrant violation of international law is the first step toward a world of violence, chaos, and instability where the law of the strongest prevails over multilateralism. The condemnation of the use of force is consistent with the position that Brazil has always adopted in recent situations in other countries and regions. The action recalls the worst moments of interference in the politics of Latin America and the Caribbean and threatens the preservation of the region as a zone of peace. The international community, through the United Nations, needs to respond vigorously to this episode. Brazil condemns these actions and remains available to promote the path of dialogue and cooperation. And so, really, it's that precedence that has now been crossed an unacceptable line. This is not obviously how the U.S. is spinning it. The U.S. is not spinning this as a military action, but rather a police action since Maduro was indicted. But extremely dangerous. Yes. Can you just go in? Can any country just go in? And if they don't want the current sitting president, just take them out? And has it now shifted to the law of the strongest versus a world of law? These are some of the unprecedented things that could come out of this. And it's a little scary because inside Venezuela, well, it's really got a mixed reaction. There are people that really hated Maduro and are quite happy that he's gone, and other people that are allies of Maduro that are not happy that he's gone. But it's not over yet. This isn't even over by any level. We have to wait and see what happens. So will there be reprisal? Who's actually in charge? What does the U.S. think it's going to do? Are they going to run Venezuela? Now, look, Rubio has walked that back. So I guess we're not going to run it, but we're going to see, because certainly we have a big say and impact in what's happening there now. And not only that, the mood on the street is really mixed, and they don't know what to think, but it's pretty dangerous to be fully vocal there and say your opinion. And in the meantime, I thought that we should take a look, and I did this on Friday so you can just see it a little bit, where the U.S. dollar to the Venezuelan bolivar, what was that, up 8? I'm sorry, I'm having trouble seeing. It's too small for me. Can you see what that is? What does that say? 18.27% or 19.21. Thank you. 19.21. Usually, I write them out and then I can see them, but I didn't do that this time. This is spot silver against it, and that's up. And this is just what is this? A 1 year? 1 year? That's up 48.5%, and spot gold is up 22.98%. So you can see that no matter where you are in the world at the moment, spot silver is outperforming spot gold. And you can see it even in the flight to safety. So now this is where I kind of picked up what was going on it today. But the markets, they're kind of going ho-hum. Of course, this could also be, we can take that down. This could also be a natural resource grab, because Venezuela is the largest holder of oil and also very resource rich. They have a lot of gold. They have also a lot of rare earth, which we know is one of the issues that the U.S. needs, rare earth, since China is really controlling that a lot more. So this is what's happening. It's shocking. It shocked everybody, including me, but this is not over yet. I think the interview that I did with Javier this morning is definitely worth listening to, because it's boots on the ground. He's been in touch with his family and his friends there, and we're just going to stay completely neutral and see how this rolls out. But I think the thing that bothers me the most personally is this is now are we shifting to a rule of might and no longer a rule of law? That's probably the piece that disturbs me the most, because if the U.S. can use it, why can't China use it? Why can't Russia use it? Why can't, who is to say that this doesn't become the norm? And why you better make sure that you are as independent and self-sufficient as possible, because frankly, anything can happen. So you want to have physical gold and silver in your possession. And we still, again, I'm telling you, this is our opportunity to get sound money back in the system again. So with that, I will take questions. And thank you very much, Miramore. 100,000 subscribers. Go Zang Gang. Yay! This is fabulous, really. And Donna Hill from Facebook asks, is there an estimate of how much the real estate resets? So just estimate if a property is currently worth $100,000 now, then after the reset, on average, what would the property be worth? Like $1 or $10? I can't get my head around this. So I have done I probably did it about a year or so ago, but there is a video on there on what happens to real estate. You're probably closer to the $1 mark. What history shows us, and this is on average. Actually, if you go back and look at this video, you're buying it on pennies on the dollar in the US or the euro or the yen or wherever you're buying the property, pennies. But one of the most well-known episodes was in Germany, where 25 ounces of gold could buy an entire city block, buildings, and all. And so part of the Zang sound money strategy, which is just based on my studies that I've done on what happens to all of these asset classes as we go through these transitions. Right now, let's face it, they've been targeted for nosebleed reflation, because this generates a lot of income, a lot of GDP. So that's all the money that flows through. Plus, it's a way for states to tax inflation and generate income for themselves. So we've got to keep that in mind. But, really, 25 ounces would buy an entire city block. I remember, this is off the top of my head, but if you go in, remember, you've got the links to all of that research in that report. Really, it's pennies on the dollar, pennies. So part of it is paying off using the gold. When we get that overnight reset, using the gold to pay off any fixed rate debt that you have, boom, boom, boom. So what might take 10 ounces of gold right now? I don't know. Maybe it'll take a quarter of an ounce or even a 20th of an ounce of gold by the time it's time to pay that off. But all of that debt from all of this real estate, whether it's an apartment complex or if you're driving around like here in Phoenix, you drive around and you see all of this new construction. Look, it takes years to get the financing in place for that, but it can take not much time at all for that to be on the market, definitely at a whole lot less. And you're going to generate income from it. That's part of it. That may or may not be applicable for you, right? It kind of depends on what other resources that you might have to help you manage that property. But to convert your gold into other income producing assets when they move from nosebleed levels where they are right now to an undervaluation, and we see that cup formation that you hear me talk about all the time, that's when we're going to start converting our gold, although it'll be more this kind of gold, into those other income producing assets. We have an exit strategy. We have it in place, and we have all the players, so the buyers of this, etc., in place to execute that strategy. That's how you build wealth, right? Now look, the income from that, if you're using this to generate income, the income from that property, whatever you convert into, is going to be absolutely irrelevant during this period of time. So it's on the other side of this mess that it actually becomes relevant again. And so if you're coming to Zang Enterprises and you're working with us, it isn't just to buy some gold and silver, blah, blah, blah. It is to execute a sound money strategy and then hopefully to build the community to get redeemable gold back in the monetary system again. So it's not just you're better off on the other end of this, but everybody's better off on the other end of this because we will have taken our power back. But yeah, it's pennies. It's pennies on the dollar, Donna. No problem. And go and watch that. If for some reason you can't find it, just call us and we'll send you the link to it. But I know that we did that video because it's an important one for people to understand. And I have more data on it. I've done this video many times over the years. And there could be some opportunities in Venezuela coming up. Not yet. Not yet. We got to see where this dust settles. But John Sadler, also from Facebook, asks, the yen had a 0 interest rate and now watch it go up. China, UK, and Japan hold most U.S. bonds, U.S. debt. What do you see about China locking the gate on refined silver paste? Do you think the derivative market can collapse? I think paper tigers die and anything that can be printed is a pointless risk. I believe that we can't have an AI future without physical silver. What's your opinion? I'm going to break that down, but I will tell you, I absolutely agree with you that silver is critical in building out, but so is gold. Silver probably a little bit more. It's more of an industrial material, but silver is absolutely essential to build out all of these energy plants that the AI is going to require. So I agree with you on that part. The yen had a 0 interest rate and now watch it go up. Yep. Because 0 interest or even lower and lower and lower interest is about growing more and more and more debt. And I know you put that down and I'm trying to think about, I just pulled a chart on one of the pieces that I did on the interest. Actually, maybe you can pull it up on the Fred, Josh, the interest on the debt that our government is paying. Because I just put that in, but you can pull that up. So really, we've been compounding interest forever. And now with the spike in interest payments, that's even worse. Yep, that would be it. Let's take a look at that. Okay, this is the interest. You have to move the cursor. Okay, you have to move the, move the cursor off so that you're not disrupting the line. But do you see that? And remember, those gray bars are official recessions. And look at the level of interest that we are now paying on the debt. What you need to understand is, though, we haven't paid all of the interest on the debt in many, many years. So when we don't, they don't show that that's, or you couldn't see that that's compounding interest. But I did that study back in 2009 because at that point, that was the first time that we ran $1 trillion deficit. And I said to myself, well, if we just now ran $1 trillion deficit and deficit spending didn't look that bad, why are we servicing 13 trillion in debt? And when you go into the Federal Reserve Education Department, that's the Fred, you can go back into that spreadsheet and you can watch everything. And that's when I really realized that what's been happening is compounding interest. So you've got all of the interest that's going into the principal. And now, as of 2022, to your earlier point about the 0 interest rates, well, interest rates aren't 0 in the U.S. or anywhere else anymore either. Can you see the impact that it's having on that interest? And if the government is paying at least part of that interest, that takes away money from services, doesn't it? And if our GDP, all the money that flows through the system is contracting, so then that creates an even bigger problem, because what it means is that we don't have enough income. Well, we already know the Federal Reserve has switched. You can take that off now. I think everybody sees how much interest we're paying that they're admitting to, even though it doesn't show the compounding interest. That should scare the crap out of you, because they're going to take care of the debt before they're going to take care of the services. And they have to raise taxes in order to do this as well. So we've got a lot of nasty things in our future. But China, UK, and Japan hold most U.S. bonds, yes, and China and Japan have been liquidating since or not buying as much since 2008. So this is not a new move, but it does talk about a run on the dollar, just very similar to what we saw in the 60s on a global basis. The citizens of the U.S., we can't see it. We don't know that that's happening. We don't realize what's happening. But in reality, the world has been turning away from dollars. This is one reason why emerging market bonds have been doing so well, because the world is turning away from U.S. dollars and dollar-denominated debt. That's why the Federal Reserve is back to buying bonds again. They're doing it quietly. They don't want you to understand it, but we're in deep doo-doo. That is what I see about China locking the gate on refined silver. They locked the gate on gold a long time ago as well. These are strategic assets, as are rare earth. And I think it could potentially be a resource grab why we entered Venezuela. I mean, President Trump was pretty clear on the energy aspect of that. So it could be a resource grab, but this is not a surprise. We were going global, right? Globalization. And this is something I find so incredibly interesting, because I was there in the 80s as a new stockbroker when all the talk was about globalization. And I remember back at the time going, I can see some problems with this. Well, we've been deglobalizing since 2020, when we realized how interconnected and distant the supply chains were. But what hasn't been deglobalizing has been the monetary system. So I think that part of what we're seeing here with China not allowing silver, or it's not any silver. There are definitely refiners that can still ship out silver from China, but I'm pretty sure that sooner than later, especially with what's happening right now, those doors might be fully closed, just like the gold doors are fully closed in China. No gold's leaving the country. If you visit and you're wearing a gold necklace, you better declare it on the way in, or you're not going to be able to take it on the way out. So what I think about the silver is a strategic commodity. It is the secondary monetary metal. We need both. But yep, to your point, that quite honestly, you can't have a future, an AI future, without silver and gold. You can't have freedom without both of those commodity monies. Let's make gold part of our monetary system again, but it's got to be redeemable. And we can demand it just by buying gold and silver. We vote with our wallets. It doesn't matter how much we protest. We vote with our wallets. This is my vote, definitely. And Spicy P8864 asks, will bail-in affect money in the stock market? Oh, absolutely. A bail-in, let me just kind of define it for those people that might not know. A bail-in is when they take depositor, a bank is failing, and they take depositor money. They bail that in, versus a bail-out where they are given taxpayer dollars, like what happened in 2008. So yes, A bail-in would absolutely have an impact on all of the markets, the stock markets, the bond markets, like we saw, because that was also being tested. Was a Silicon Valley Bank, was that 2023 where we had a number of regional banks go out, right? And they did not bail in those depositors. They actually bailed out those banks because they were not yet ready for us to hear about the bail-in. Do you have that one audio clip with the FDIC guys talking about the bail-in? Do you have that handy? Can you pull it up? Okay, we'll keep talking because I think this is one of the single best audio clips ever, because they don't think anybody's listening. And so they're speaking quite freely, and I'll keep talking until you tell me that we're ready. But with this more recent problem in the banks, there were a couple banks that went out, they actually did a bail-in of 50% of the uninsured deposits. So they honored all of the insurance and then did 50%. Did you notice that? Did you even know about it? They don't want you to realize the real probability. I'm not talking about possibility, the real probability, because what you really need to understand legally is that once you make that deposit into the bank, that is no longer your money. You have loaned the bank that money. Are you ready? Okie dokie, listen to this.
I completely agree with that. I almost think you'd scare the public if you put this out. Like, why are they telling me this? Should I be concerned about my bank? Like, my insurance company doesn't tell me what they're doing with my assets. They just assume they're going to pay my claim, right? I think you've got to think of the unintended consequences of taking a public that has more full faith and confidence in the banking system than maybe people in this room do. That we want them to have full faith and confidence in the banking system. They know the FDIC insurance is there. They know it works. They put their money in. They're going to get their money out. So there's a select crowd of people that are in the institutional side. And if they want to understand this, they're going to find a way to understand this. There's a bunch of law firms represented in this room. There's a bunch of people that charge them by the hour a lot of money to explain this all to them. And it's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And they all have huge staffs. But I would be careful about the unintended consequences of starting to blast too much of this out in the general. Professional need to know.
Yeah, professionals need to know. Citizens don't need to know about the bail-in, just like those citizens versus the professionals in Cyprus. So the professionals got their money out of the system. The citizens' money was bailed in, and it was 5 years before they had access to the full extent of their wealth. How much purchasing power would be lost over that period of time, right? So, yeah, there is a bail-in in our future, which is why part of the strategy, the sound money strategy, and I know that this is losing value. It has very little value now, but it's still recognizable. So this would be your first line of defense, but it has to be out of the system. This would be classified as cash in the wild because they don't have the chip in it yet. So, yeah, the bail-in will absolutely impact stock markets. They will go down because it's going to be a shocking thing. They will impact bond markets. And mostly, though, what my concern is not in the markets, it's how it impacts you. So if you have all your wealth in the markets, you're going to feel it. If you have all of your wealth and you don't have a sound money strategy in place, become your own central bank. What do we need to lead a reasonable standard of living? Food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. Do not procrastinate. You will not have, look, I've been working on this hard since 2008 because I knew that's when the system died. And guess what? even though I'm more prepared than almost anybody else I know, that guy in Panama, way more prepared than me, amazing. But I'm still more prepared than probably 99.999% of the people out there. And I don't feel fully ready yet. So get ready. And Deb Warner 2978 asks, Lynette, is it still true that when buying/selling anything, precious metals, that the sale is not reportable unless it is over $10,000? That rule is why I started buying silver, no federal control. Actually, on the buy side or the sell side, depending upon what it is, there is no reportability at any level. On silver, if it's foreign coins, then there is a certain level. So you can call and talk to us and we can give you the rules on that. But I do have to say that, of course, all good citizens pay all taxes that are due. But this is an American Eagle. This is a new coin, an American Eagle. There is no reportability on the buy or the sell of this, but you still are required to report it. Same thing is true on the collectibles. There's no reportability on the buy or the sell. There is some level of reportability. Well, not this because it's an old silver coin, but in some areas of silver, like you can see I have some bars here. And this one, I just did a video on the different ways. So that's why I said, oh, let's just leave this set up. This happens to be a 100-ounce Engelhart bar, 999 fine silver. This weighs a lot. If I were to put this in my pants pocket, and I don't think I have pockets in these particular pants, but it would pull my pants down. That's how heavy it is. It's not very usable in this form. It is much better, in my opinion. You guys do whatever you want. But in my opinion, it's better to have a variety of sizes, because how are you going to cut that in half? You're not going to. I wouldn't mind cutting this, right? Cut this up, but you want a variety of sizes. It's just easier to deal with. No federal control. And the same thing is true with gold. And remember, gold is the primary currency metal. So even though that gold-silver ratio is growing more narrow right now, this is not a trade. For me, this is not a trade. For me, this is my insurance that not only will I protect whatever I've managed to accumulate, whatever wealth I've managed to accumulate, but it puts me in a position through this crisis, and we haven't seen anything yet, that I will be able to accumulate more wealth and leave a better legacy for my family. That happens to be my personal goal. That may or may not be your goal, to leave a legacy, but I think it's critically important that we do it. The real legacy that I've realized I want to leave is sound money back in the system with the public having their power again. That's the real legacy. And Expact Stacker 777, I think you squeaked in at 100,000, just ahead of Francis Hunt and Andy Scheckman. You know, we're all in the same team, right? If the more people that own gold, the better off we will all be. So, woohoo. And Richie Luxury says, only Lynette and Francis warned us against crypto. Thanks, Lynette, for a great year. Thank you for being here, Richie, and I appreciate that very, very much. You know, unfortunately, or fortunately, it kind of depends. Crypto, I don't think that's going away. It's not going away. But how about we just get some redeemable gold in there? Maybe we can have the best of all worlds. Because quite honestly, as we've seen, the easier and cheaper it is to create money, the less value that money has. Crypto is cheaper and easier than this. They want to get rid of this completely. But of course, they want you to volunteer it, and we've been doing a great job with that. Let's get redeemable gold in the system so that even if we end up with that digital money, we still have the power, because if we don't like what they're doing, we'll pull it out. we will say, okay, you can keep the crypto, send me the gold. Yep, that is what creates restrictions. So, yep. And Queen Finsov says, love the thumbnail, so badass. I have been called that. And really, I mean, my job is to speak for you and represent you. I work for you. That's who I work for. So if that makes me a badass, yes, I'll do it. I'll show up. I'll do the work. And Dreammore777 asks, silver $82 today? What's next? Well, what's the true fundamental value of an ounce of silver? $2,000. What's the true fundamental value of an ounce of gold? $40,000. What's next? Well, what's next is a really big crisis, and then ultimately gold and silver going to its fundamental value. In the meantime, even though I touted those numbers to you, the more of this that they do, and this is the only thing they have, the higher those number goes. So, honestly, would it ultimately surprise me to see gold when they do the reset at $3 trillion an ounce? No, that wouldn't surprise me. How about spot silver at what? $200,000, $300,000 an ounce? That wouldn't surprise me. Just understand that, where is it? Here it is. This is a real government bill, my $10 trillion Zimbabwe note, of which I can buy nothing. The numbers don't matter, right? They're fun, and it's fun when we see them going up, but realize that a lot of what's really happening is de-dollarization and the value of all of this government money going away. 10 trillion times zero is zero. MLBF8GL asks, are we seeing the separation of COMEX fake silver to real price discovery in other exchanges like Shanghai? Yes, we are. Remember, this transition, I mean, these things take a long time. So you might not be aware of it until the very end, and that's generally true with the public. But this separation between the physical and the digital world started last January, about a year ago, right? And so it's not over yet. But right now, we still do have, and that's what you're really talking about here. In general, the paper markets, the Wall Street markets, those spot markets are still somewhat dictating the price. However, there's an unlimited amount of that. They can create as many contracts as they want. What you're seeing on this desk, the gold and the silver, there is a finite amount of it, period, end of discussion. And these are strategic metals. And silver particularly gets used up in industry. So it's a diminishing asset. And to the earlier question, is strategic and instrumental in artificial intelligence and a lot of the cryptocurrencies as well, and all of these electronics. But make no mistake about it, whether you're looking at gold or you're looking at silver, they've never found anything that they can duplicate in a laboratory, all of the properties that gold and silver have. So what do you want? You want demand, right? That's what you want. There's demand in one place for this physical representation of a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency. One place. Physical demand, one place, even if it's just in your checking account or wherever. So when that demand goes away, you've got a problem. And what have we been watching in the crypto world? We've been watching the cryptocurrencies in what they're calling a winter, in a bear market, in a negative market, at the same time that we're watching governments and banks and major corporations go full throttle in adoption. This will be thrown down our throats. What I'm saying is, how about if we get some good stuff in there too? That's what I'm saying. And there will be time to position into what are the cryptocurrencies that are going to survive this. There isn't one person that knows. I can guess, right? I can look at the adoption on Wall Street and say to you, well, probably Bitcoin's going to be around because of the level of adoption of Wall Street. I can make a case for all of this. XRP's use, Ethereum's use. Maybe they will survive. Let's assume for a moment they actually do. They'll be a whole lot cheaper in terms of dollars after that reset. And so if you're holding your purchasing power intact, you're going to be able to buy those a whole lot cheaper. Same thing with real estate. That's where the opportunities are. Look, when one currency dies, another one is born. What gold and silver do is they hold your purchasing power intact from one to the other, but they also enable you to take advantage of opportunities that present all along the way. Like many in government are likened to say, never let a good crisis go to waste. Well, why should that only be for the 1%? It's not. It is for us too. And, I will have people say, well, look at silver's outperforming gold and we can do all of that with silver. Here's the reality of it. You can do all of this with any gold and silver in any form because they are both monetary at their base. But it would take an awful lot of this. And it is really heavy. This is a 100-ounce bar. I can't really, if I put this in my purse to take it somewhere, I'd be walking like that, right? If I put this in my pocket, it'd pull my pants down. Whereas I can carry an awful lot more wealth in this teeny weeny little package. So that's really the difference between the two. You can do everything that you want with silver. It's just harder to do it because it requires a lot more bulk. Oh, I kind of messed this up, so I'm going to, well, maybe it doesn't want to. Here's some travel jewelry, guys. Travel jewelry. We'll be talking more about that in the weeks to come as well. So, yes, we are seeing a real separation, and the premium that they've been paying on the Shanghai exchange, somewhere $8 above spot, $10 above spot. Yes, we are seeing that separation in the March to the physical supply and demand markets actually showing you good price discovery. You ain't getting that on Wall Street. They can create a whole bunch of garbage that doesn't exist and move the markets with it. So, yep, that's what we're seeing, and I'm happy about that. It's about damn time. It's about time. And Richie Luxury says, Lynette, go get that Bentley. You deserve it. Well, let me tell you, a Bentley is a very nice car, but this would not be a good time to get it because I can't take it to my bug out location. That's way, way, way too remote. I do have a vehicle that gets me up and down that hill without any worry, and actually has saved my life from one time when I went where no humans should ever go. Thank you so much, GPS. I really appreciate that. But I'm here to live the tale, and that happened to be a Volvo, which is a very, very safe car, and I'm glad I was in it at that time. But James Crow 1252 says, I own gold and silver, still not looking forward to a world in which their value skyrockets. Exactly. I would agree with that, because that means that the system is imploding at a very obvious level. I agree with you 100%. And Richie Luxury says, they have us fighting each other instead of the system that enslaves us. That it's divide and conquer. I've seen, I'm not political, as you guys know. It doesn't matter who is in the White House, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. Over the years, both of them have just simply moved the agenda forward. And there isn't one person that created this mess, and there isn't one person that's going to fix this mess. But and understand, when they created this to begin with, one of the things that they said that is so disgusting to me is this, because not one man in a million understands inflation. If people have to work harder to sustain a standard of living, they have less time to look at us. This is the same thing, divide and conquer. If you don't think about how it is these days. If you don't think the way I think, then I hate your guts. Well, wait a minute, that means you're not having a conversation. And that's why here in this forum, I want all voices. We don't have to agree in order to come together, learn from each other, and protect each other. We have to have this discourse, because how many times can you be lied to when you do not know the truth? We need people with different experiences and different opinions. Then you get to sit back after you hear everything, and you do maybe even do a little research on your own, and you go, "What? Trust your gut. What feels right to me?" Right? A lot of what we see going on is when there's a lot of activity and a lot of actions that are happening, it is really about confusing you, because a confused mind does nothing. And when you make that choice, and you need to understand, doing nothing is absolutely a choice. That means that the choice that you have made is to remain vulnerable, to stay in the system that is robbing you and has robbed you for your entire life. That's what inflation does. If you question that, just go into the Federal Reserve Education Department. Can you pull up the purchasing power? And let's put my birthday in. And you'll see how much they have been robbing you intentionally, but you don't even realize it. And that's the divide and conquer thing. They need you to volunteer your wealth. I say no. And I say no by having discourse with lots of people all around the world, and also positioning into to real money, to sound money, gold and silver. So 10, 15, 54. I am going to be 72 this year. That seems so weird to me. I think you need, okay, here, do it. Yeah, you do the year first. And then the date, the month, and then the day. Nope, 10, and then 15. There you go. Okay, so that's how much purchasing power the dollar has lost since the day that I was born. Anybody can do this. FRED, purchasing power of the consumer dollar. Put your birth date in the search bar, and you'll see how much they've been robbing you. That's closer to the truth because, of course, this is all formulas and they changed the formulas. But I'm telling you, yeah, fight each other and then you're not paying attention. Have a war pop up in South America, in the Middle East, in Europe, in Taiwan, with China, with confusion. Right? A lot of going in. I mean, how much has changed in the last year? A lot has changed. It's very confusing. A confused mind says no. That, my friends, is the strategy. And you have to be smarter than that. And that means that you have to come together and have conversation. Like I said, there's not one doubt in my mind, but cryptocurrencies, and some will say, well, Bitcoin's not a crypto, blah, 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 blah. Okay, the digital money that they've created in any form can be stable coins, can be Bitcoin. It doesn't matter, right? I know that those are here to stay. What we need to do is make sure that they are fair. Because if we don't do that, I'm not that kind of an engineer to understand how much they're robbing us. And just like they were able to do with inflation, taking away your purchasing power with these algorithms, they can make it small enough that you don't notice. That's the problem that they're having right now with this sticky inflation. People notice that. Well, what if it's so low that you don't notice it? They ultimately get what they want, but you're volunteering it. You're not pushing back. You want to push back, you want to take your power back, get redeemable gold back in the system. And EE Arts says 1913 Federal Reserve created by the world's biggest banks. Rothschilds, JP Morgan, Rockefeller and company. It's all a scam. They will create, well, we're probably already in World War III, hate to say it, and confiscate gold and silver. I think that's highly probable. That's why I prefer it in collectible form. In collectible form. Harder to confiscate. Desperate governments do desperate things. And for those of you in the U.S. that are living on hopium and saying, that can never happen here. Well, it has happened here 5, count them 5 times. The most current time, 1971. Not okay. That's clear historic precedence. Clear precedence. I agree with you. And James Crow 1252 said, laws are their weapons governments use against the masses. They change them at will, just like the financial regulations. You got it. You got it. What's above laws and regulations? Gold and silver in your possession and in many forms. Many forms. We just finished a video. It's not going to come out for a minute yet, but on all the different ways. That's why you see all of this gold and silver here. All the different ways, or a bunch of different ways that you can own physical gold and silver. It's important. And Arnold Schultz, 1095, said, are gold and mining stocks a good investment? You know, that can we pull up? Can we open up that one? Because I actually just ran a chart comparing. That was the many forms that we just recorded a little while ago on the mining stocks versus the spot market, which still doesn't really reflect the true fundamental value. But you can look at the performance, because when you're doing something with a mining stock, it's a stock. And that company may go in and mine, but there's also resource nationalization, which we've just been experiencing, or we have experienced in the past. So I like the physical metal, period, because that becomes invisible, and you can do it in lots of different forms. So that's where my personal level of comfort is, and where history has shown a really good level of comfort. There would be other times when that could make a lot of sense to do mining stocks, and there might be times when mining stocks might outperform something else, but it's a corporation. It is not the underlying gold. You're not going to the mine and going, look, I have 5 shares of your stock, so that must be my gold right there. Right now, it's safety, 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 which means physical gold and silver in your possession. If you open up that one, not the Word, the PowerPoint. I just did it like an hour ago. If you hand it to me, I'll find it. I'll find it. Okay, it's probably even still open.
Do you know the
Here,
date?
let me, yeah, I just did it like a couple of minutes ago. So I'm gonna get rid of this, and I'm gonna go in, oops, come on, go in here. Okay, it's right here. And the chart that I'm looking for is that one and then the next one. So Josh, if you can put that up on the screen.
Do you want me to start your
Yeah,
slide?
yeah. And then that way I can control it. Oops. Hold on. Er. Okie dokie. So this is the mining stock, one of them, the index. So this represents 30 mining companies that just broke out in 2025, unlike the spot markets that I've shown you breaking out and the physical gold markets. So you can see the cup formation and you can see the breakout. And then here's the comparison on a long-term trend basis. That top, that blue, you can see how the spot market basically and the miners ran together. I think this might go back to 99. It's too small for me to see, but you can also see when that shifted and how the spot markets have severely outperformed the mining stocks. And even though, let's see, did I draw? I probably did draw my, yeah, wait a minute. I probably did draw lines here. Here we go. Okay. So you see the breakout in the spot market here happened in 2020, even though it kind of went back and forth for a minute, but the real breakout was there versus 2025 for the mining stock breakout. So that should kind of, that should probably answer that question pretty well. If it doesn't, let me know and I'll try again. But there's a comparison, and I just ran this, so this is pretty current. And Wolf728 asks, Lynette, it's still not clear to me if the dollar goes down to zero purchasing power, why would anyone accept it as payment? Buffett is sitting on billions of cash. Why would he do that? Okay, so that's a great question. And a lot of this doesn't really seem to make a whole lot of sense. But did you even, or do you think most people even realize that officially there's 3 cents left? No, people don't realize that. And so they continue to work for and use this as a tool of barter. Even if it hits 50, if the confidence in the system remains there, and remember, I talk about this confidence all the time, then the dollar or euros or yen or any of them will remain viable and can still be used as a tool of barter. It's a manipulation tool, but mostly for you and me, this is our tool of barter that we're forced to use. So as long as the confidence in the system remains, and remember, we keep kissing that lower level, but we have not yet broken through it. That's what I am paying attention to, probably more, maybe, I don't want to say more than anything else, but for me, once it goes to that lower level and breaks that bottom support level, then for me, the clock will be ticking. And it won't be a good thing, and nobody's going to then want to use this. Remember, one place. So it's not so much if the purchasing, when the purchasing power gets officially to zero, because they'll postpone that as long as they can, and people aren't aware of it. It's when that confidence breaks below the lowest support level, that's when that will trigger that loss of confidence. So that's actually what I'm waiting for. Why is Buffett sitting on billions in cash? Because he doesn't like the markets. That's why he's sitting on billions in cash. He trusts the markets even less. And that is kind of interesting because I know I told you a while ago, even as it looked like I was wrong, but that I felt that we had entered the melt-up phase in here where we see the markets just consistently go up as the value of the currency is consistently going down. And I also can't prove this, but I know who Warren Buffett's father was, and he was a huge believer in redeemable gold in the currency. So even though I cannot tell you how much gold Warren is sitting on, I mean, let's face it, there's only so much that you need. My bet would be he's sitting on a ton of gold, and he probably inherited a lot of gold from his father, who was a huge believer in redeemable gold. I know how he was raised, but he is a shill to the system. And I think he remains that. So that's why I think he's sitting on there. Do I think, I mean, he's a bright man. I'm not going to say anything about that. And I've talked to a lot of very bright people. I really haven't talked to anybody that fully understands currency life cycles. So my bet is Warren doesn't understand that either. Doesn't mean he's not smart, but sitting on a bunch of cash that's losing value that rapidly, I don't think he gives a crap about the cash. It's still the tool of barter, but I don't think he cares about it. An MLBF8GL, if I had to remember that, I'd have a real problem. Oh, did he ask anything?
Yeah, right there.
Oh, okay. I hate what cryptos are, but digital currency is the future. Yeah, but you can allow those that are in power to have the voice on what that digital currency actually is, which will not be in your best interest. That will be just a full surveillance mechanism. Or you can come together in global community and demand a fair monetary system, even in digital currency. And backed doesn't mean that it's there. Redeemable forces them to actually have the gold back there. It doesn't even mean that you absolutely have to do it every second, but you have to have that probability and that possibility. That's what holds their toes to the fire. So I agree with all of that, and I can see some good in this, but it's just that I see it used for evil too. If we don't come together and make it different, I can't say that we deserve, that anybody's going to deserve what we get, but we'll sure get it. And Peace and Freedom 8931 asks, if reset becomes digital and we want to stay out of the system, how would we convert our metals to use in retail? That part is actually pretty easy. And that is really kind of the point of why, plus people ask me all the time, why I did it to show you the different ways that you can own metals. Because let's assume for a moment that history repeats itself and we have another confiscation of the monetary metals, which is what you find in your IRA. That's what you can hold there. But not this, because this is a different category. You can't hold this in an IRA. And when you look at the ultra rarities index, remember we just talked about a breakout? Well, that breaks out first. So these are coins that, this is not an ultra rarity, I'm telling you right now. That's not really what we work in, but I do pay attention because you can have a coin like this that could be $15 or $20 million. Well, let's see, who can afford that? The 1%ers can afford that. That's who can afford that. Well, if you're a 1%er, what do you think could be the possibility that you either write the laws, like Treasury Secretary Wooden wrote the laws making these exempt, or have the ability to influence those that write the laws? So I think that this gives me an extra layer of protection from confiscation. You may not think they're going to confiscate, but then you're living on hopium. And I always like to be in a position, if I can be at all, what if I'm right and what if I'm wrong? And if I can do something that really does not matter whether I'm right or wrong, I will pay the premium, especially understanding the true fundamental value of this asset. I will pay that premium because I'm still able to buy it way below fundamental value. That means all of those costs will easily be eaten up. But if I can hold it in this form and then use it in the normal marketplace, that's what I'm looking to do. And I would say that's the same thing for this as well, right? For this, which does happen to be an American Eagle, and there are ways to do that because this is other travel jewelry. this is an 1881. So this is actually in pre-33 form. What about this one? What's the date on this? This looks like 1999, or I don't know, something like this. All right. So this is a new coin, right? This would be bullion. You could hold this coin in an IRA, but you couldn't hold it in ring form in an IRA, because that, again, puts it into a different category. This is monetary. So that's why I say you want to look in the IRS guidelines, and if I cannot hold it in an IRA, that's the kind of gold that I personally buy. If I can hold it in an IRA, then quite honestly, I am not interested. Not interested. And how can you convert your metals? Well, you can sell them. There are more than 3,000 dealers, and this is also a global market. So you can go and do this anywhere in the world. So there are dealers like Zang Enterprises, right? We have all of these relationships established with the wholesalers. You're in at the market, you're out at the market. So that's how one way you're going to convert it. But there's also smelters, there's also jewelers, there's also pawnbrokers. Do yourself a favor, don't go to those cash for gold places, because they just rape you. Oops, I probably shouldn't have said that. Oh, yeah, he's going like, no. Well, we can't cut it out of the live, but we can cut it out on the when he does pieces. Oops, sorry about that. But they do. They take advantage of you. And you know, you do whatever you're comfortable with. I can't really tell you what to do, but it's very easy to convert gold and silver no matter where you are in the world. And frankly, no matter what form it takes, it's very easy to convert this into whatever the local currency happens to be. That's the easiest part of this. And I imagine it will continue to be, because they're not going to go in. Can you imagine what would happen if they decided to confiscate jewelry? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. If they decided to, you know, I know a lot of people are talking about the possibility of them confiscating silver, but it's a diminishing asset. So if you are concerned about that, because I know some people are, just do constitutional silver then. Just do constitutional. It will more than likely have the same kind of protection, because those that write the laws want to protect themselves. I think we should protect the world. That's why we want to get redeemable gold back in the system, because it's got to be bigger than you and me. It's got to be, or it's nothing. It means nothing. You know, I love my children. I love my grandchildren. You know, I want to protect them. But I realize that if all I do is protect me and protect my family, what does that mean for you and your family? We're still in the same boat. And if it's not okay with me and my family, why in the world would it be okay with me for you guys to suffer that consequence? It's not. We've got to make a difference for the whole world. And as lofty as that may sound, if we get 3% of the population to buy gold and silver, we have a voice, because it's 1% of the population that's making all these choices. Not in our best interest, in their best interest. Don't you think it's time we took our power back? I can't believe that they got away with it in 1913. It was sneaky. There weren't a lot of people in Congress. But that's really when they started to abuse the Constitution. I'd be good with constitutional money, very good with it. I'd be good if we were actually utilizing our whole Constitution. Okie doke. And Peace and Freedom 8931 asks, if reset becomes digital and we want to stay out of the system, oh, we already did that. Okay. So Colleen Allen 3382 asks, if the banks do a bail-in, is there any way to guess the percentage that they will take from one's bank account? Yes, there is. What percentage did they take in Greece? Okay, so it's not on a percentage basis. When they tested the bail-in, they tested it in Cyprus, and they actually took 100% to begin with. But then the world went, oh, wait, what about deposit insurance? What about deposit insurance? And you just listen to that FDIC clip. And so then the banks in Cyprus backed up and honored the 100,000 euro mark. However, people just didn't have access to their bank account more than, I think, 200 euros a day or something like that, which makes it extraordinarily challenging. So it's not so much a percentage. The way that it's set up right now, unless they change it, is anything in the U.S. above that $250,000 mark, right? It used to be $100,000 up to 2008, and then there was a money market that froze, the prime money market froze, and then they raised that from 100,000 to 250,000. So it's not so much that it's a percentage of your bank account, it's anything above, at the moment, above that insurance, because that insurance scheme, those are their words, not mine. They call it a scheme. It is a scheme. It's designed to make you feel comfortable. Well, it's insured. What is the problem? But the reality is any insurance contract is only as good as the person on the other side, or the corporation on the other side of that contract. And depending upon how this bail-in unfolds, I mean, we did just test it recently, and they took 50% of the uninsured deposits. So they honored everything up to that 250 level, and even beyond that, because maybe they weren't quite ready for a huge outrage. I'm thinking they were testing the waters to see the response, but they can legally take 100%, because once you make the deposit, it's not really your money. But they want you to think that the insurance matters. So they're going to probably honor that. That was the Cyprus test. That was also a recent test. And Charles Wen 6088 says, paper investments will burn, buy real things. Ta-da! Yes, I agree. And Cole Thomas 1737, there has never been a total collapse like this, and expect billions to perish, leaving a huge glut of real estate and vehicles and lots of other stuff, right? Watches, really good art and antiques. And this is the opportunity to grow what's called dynastic wealth. Dynastic wealth is wealth that's lasted in families at least 300 years. And it has three legs. Gold, truly rare collectibles. Now look, I bought this in a box of junk silver. And when I pulled it out, I went, oh man, this is not junk. Yes, it was tarnished, it was black. But seriously, I bought this in a box of junk silver. And I bought this, when the COVID outbreak happened, and then silver and gold ran, and we would do this today too. Clients got the available silver first, period. You will get it before we get it. And just like when it's time to liquidate, quite honestly, you get to liquidate first. That is a very important commitment. But at any rate, since I couldn't buy coins, right, I just went in and bought a bunch of junk silver. And frankly, at auction, I paid nothing for this. I'd have to look and see, because I did recently have it appraised. But maybe we can look up and see what that was appraised at, and I'll come back and tell you. But literally in a box of junk silver, like this, like in a box of this kind of stuff. That's way better because it's got age to it. So, there's going to be a lot of really good stuff that's going to come available as long as you hold your purchasing power intact. And that's all of that goes into the sound money strategy. This is a very detailed strategy just based upon historic norms. And just because wealth never disappears, it just shifts location. So how about you being in a position to have that wealth shift your way? What a concept. And even with the digital currencies and stuff like that, they will get a whole lot cheaper because they're only valued in dollars. And I can't sit here and tell you who's going to survive and who's not. We'll know that. We'll know that in due time. But right now what they're doing is they're getting awareness. And it should be pretty darn obvious to everybody. They will force that awareness. They will force you to use it. Did you want to? Oh. What was the three pieces? So this and the creamer and sugar.
3,500.
3,500 was an appraisal, and that was done in August, right? Didn't we do that in August? Right? So where was spot silver at that point? 3,500. Does it say a weight on there? Well, we'll have to measure it. Next time we do something like this, we probably should just bring in one of the sensitive scales so you guys could see. I betcha, if I had to judge, I'd say maybe 2, 3 maybe ounces, and maybe there's another 3 or 2, 3 ounces, maybe 6 ounces. Let's even say 10. What?
He did make a notation, 950 grams. I apologize.
Oh, 950 grams. So then if you convert that into ounces at 32 and a half or whatever that works out to.
33.51.
33, yeah, per ounce. So if you divide 925 by 33.1. How many ounces in that set?
28.35.
There's not 28 ounces in that. I'll do the math and, because this is 100 ounces, and telling you, this is like, you hear that? Right? It's a huge difference. This is solid. This is hollow, right? So anyway, you get the point. And do we have more questions? Oh, okay. Peace and Freedom 8931 asks, is there a redeemable gold petition we can sign? Actually, what you can do is join the Sound Money movement. And yeah, we can provide that link for you and join the community. That's what we've got to do. We've got to get sound money, gold and silver legalized state to state. And then that'll put pressure on the federal government, but we have to do it on a global basis too. It's why I'm traveling as much as I am. So thank you very much. Yeah. Sound Money Movement. We'll put that link and join us and join the fight. That's it. Yay. Thank you. And Ben 6267, do you have a target for silver? Well, look, I can't give you a whole lot of guarantees, but I can give you this guarantee. Thank you, Uncle Al. At some point, I can't tell you when, but at some point, all assets, all instruments go to their fundamental value. Thank you, Federal Reserve Education Department, and looking at the purchasing power of the consumer dollar. If you look down at the bottom of that left-hand axis, you see a big fat goose egg. They are more honest about the true value of this stuff, right? But conversely, since this is money, this is fiat money, this is sound money, it's the flip side of the coin. So if you want to know how much an ounce of this is, then all you really have to do, it's a simple math equation. You take all the debt that's been created in the world, And we're not even talking about derivatives. So I'm being super conservative with this. And that represents how much of this stuff has been created. And then you divide it by all the gold that exists in the whole world, including in-ground, and regardless of its form. Doesn't matter, because we know gold and silver at its base is monetary, regardless of the form of it, or certainly the coins. And then that gives you a number. And that number tells you the true fundamental value of an ounce of gold, which is somewhere around $40,000 right at this moment in time. So wherever spot gold might be, 4,400, 4,500, and the same thing, then you divide that for silver to find the fundamental value of silver, whether or not it's going to go to this 20th of an ounce to 1 ounce. That's the ratio, 20 to 1. That's what it was in the beginning. I can't exactly tell you that, though I have pulled up the gold-silver ratio chart, so we can talk about that next week. We'll kind of see where the dust settles this week, and we can discuss it next week. But that puts it somewhere around 2,000. And again, the more of this that they create, that means the more debt they create, the higher those numbers go. Numbers mean nothing, though. It is what you can buy with it, so I don't really care about the numbers. And I did want to point out the weight of that. You can hear that. And however, I do want to say this. Let's just say that in this run, I don't think this is what's going to happen this year, but in this run, if spot silver goes to 2,000, you are not going to want to convert it back into dollars, because at that point, everybody's going to be quite aware that this has lost all of its value. It's the same thing with spot gold. Now, part of the strategy is when we see that cup formation happening with those income producing assets, which is more than just real estate. And I do have it up, I just haven't gotten to it yet, to do the fundamental value on all of the different asset classes, so that you know not just the target on gold and silver, but the target on real estate and rights and water and all that other stuff. You will only, in the strategy, you're going to be converting it as you need to use it for things that you can only use for dollars, or if it's a digital currency or whatever it happened to be, the local currency. Okay? If you're going to then turn around and convert it into those income producing assets or food or whatever you need to sustain your standard of living. Right? You're not going to do it just for dollars by the time that happens. I'm certain of that. You're not going to want to do it for dollars, because you're going to understand what's happening. And Jeremy Gould 5752 says, Lynette, what are your thoughts on no copper being available on exchanges like AppMex, JM Bullion, SD Bullion? 1 week ago, you could find some. Yesterday and today, nothing. You know, well, first of all, copper is rising like mad as well in the spot markets, because they also need that to build those, to build out those energy centers. I don't know. I'll look into Dr. Copper a bit more. So can you pull that, and let's just kind of put that in as a thought and do a little bit more research on, because we never really carried copper, since I'm about currency life cycle issues, and gold is the primary currency metal, silver is the secondary currency metal. And just as a little reminder, pennies that were minted prior to 1982 are 95% copper. So I'll let me come back to you and make sure I know that for next Tuesday. Thank you. And at 100 million billion, is it too late to buy gold now? Nope. it is totally not too late to continue to buy gold, to continue to buy silver, because again, that's really the importance of understanding the true value of an asset is critical to you understanding if something is undervalued, fairly valued, or overvalued. Therefore, should I buy it? Should I hold it? Should I liquidate it? You know, and it helps you know going through those ups and downs as the markets gyrate, because nothing goes straight up just like nothing goes straight down. You've got to have that bouncing along the way. So if you are quite clear like I am that the true fundamental value of this is $40,000, but it's trading at $4,500 or $10,000 or even $30,000, which obviously we're not there yet, but if we were, it's a bargain. It's on sale. If you go to the grocery store and there's something that you need and it's on sale, do you buy one? Or if you can, do you buy multiples of them, right? Because you understand that it's on sale. Gold and silver on sale. Even at these levels, way on sale. Way on sale. And Cargo Bob asks, what mint is your heavy mint from? This is an Engelhart bar, and it's marked right on there. And Pamela Crabtree 1727 asks, don't store coins in safe deposit boxes. Well, I will say this, don't store coins in bank safe deposit boxes. If you are in a good private vault, that could be different because, you know, like for me personally, because I'm so visible, then, you know, most of my gold and silver by a wide margin, and even some of my better gold and silver collectibles, rare collectibles, I have in a private vault. And I'm more comfortable with that because of my visibility. So I also don't think it's horrendous to be diversified in that arena. And I know that we have talked about, and somebody just recently asked for a video on vaults and storage and all of that. So we have some footage on that, maybe set that up and we'll put that into the rotation. I'm not saying I'm going to get to it by next week, but we'll put it in the rotation because I think people need to know about that. But bank safe deposit boxes, no, because they're the arm of the Federal Reserve. They're private corporations. They're not going to care about you. Plus, you are not allowed to hold cash in a bank safe. You got to read the fine print. Cash in a bank safe deposit or bullion. So new gold, because it is classified as hoarding. Now, legally, you can hold the coins in there, but still in all, if they close the banks down for however long, you will lose complete access. So private vaults are very different, in my opinion, than bank vaults. And I would agree with the bank vaults. No. And Digital Gravedigger, that's a good name. Big banks will acquire little banks, and there's been a major consolidation in the banking arena. Let's expand that because I want to put fintechs in there, which are financial technology companies that have grown up. Some of them are actually getting their banking licenses, becoming banks, and other banks are buying fintech companies to give them that capabilities. So yeah, it's not just that big banks will acquire little banks, and that consolidation has really been happening since 2000. And it happens inside of every crisis where your choices get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller intentionally, and they can just charge you more and more and more and more and more. You've got to add fintechs into that mix because that's happening on both sides, with either the financial technology companies being big enough to become chartered banks and then buying and a lot the easiest way to do that, frankly, is for them to buy a small bank. Boom. That's easier. But they are even making it very easy for fintech companies, which then would bring in the digital as well, getting that banking license, because that gives them safe harbor, which means they can do anything they want and you have no recourse, basically. I probably not being 100% accurate, but I'm being pretty accurate in that. That's safe harbor. And we have been doing that legally because they're encouraging the experimentation of these financial technology companies and these digital assets. So you've got to, if you want to encourage that experimentation, when something happens, you're the loser, not the company. Yeah. And Bobri Mersma says, will banks and credit unions ever handle bullion eagles over the counter in the U.S.? It's a possibility, because should we do an overt confiscation, then all of the banks, including the credit unions, I would imagine, I can't guarantee this, that's above my pay grade, but their job would be to accumulate as much as the metals out there as possible, and that would mean that they've got to have the ability to buy them, so people would even know that they can go and sell them. And so we'll find out. But if they do a confiscation and setting up to do that, I think if they do legalize, or not legalize it, because they could do it right now, they just don't know how to do it. And brokerage firms, stock brokerage firms, insurance, they don't know how to do it either, because their markets were built on the paper markets. But this should be expanded. So we'll see what happens. And Janito 4146. I'm retired and have a chunk of dollars in an IRA. Is it a good idea to take the tax hit to buy silver and gold, considering the appreciation with metals right now? I can't tell you what to do. You have to do whatever you're comfortable with. But what I can tell you is that I did have a SEP IRA. And once we got to a certain point in the trend cycle, I no longer felt comfortable with the bullion or even having that IRA, to be honest with you. So I liquidated it. I still have a very nice retirement plan, but frankly, it's in my possession. So you have to do what you're comfortable with. I was much more comfortable having it, paying my taxes and all of that, because I know I can recoup that. I'm not worried about that taxable event. So the choice that I made was to liquidate my IRA, pay the taxes, and convert it into physical gold and silver that's in my possession and invisible to the government. You do what you're comfortable with. And Peace and Freedom asks, are the credit unions better than big banks? Well, I don't think that, I know the credit unions don't take the same level of risks, particularly with derivatives, as the big banks, but the credit unions and the community banks are dependent upon the large commercial banks like Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, all those guys. And they're also, I don't think they would be deemed as too big to fail, like the very large banks have been designated as a systemically important financial institution, a SIFI, that were bailed out before. Now this time they'll probably be bailed in first and then bailed out because they're too big to fail. So I think on many levels, credit unions and small community banks are much bigger than the big guys, but you got to understand that they're all interdependent, and they're not too big to fail. The big guys are classified as too big to fail. So you can take that information and do what you want with it. And Mr. Silver Bart asks, great information, but if we know this info, I bet the people in charge know this. Of course, yeah, I agree with you. We know what they're doing, so we can copy them. Well, that's what the strategy really, so much of that strategy is. The whole strategy of the government is to repay the debt with dollars that have less and less and less and less value. They get to use them when they have the highest level of purchasing power. We also see central banks accumulating more gold than they ever have historically. So, I'll bet you they know lots of things that I have no clue about. But in reality, though, I mean, how many of these people do you think actually studied the opening documents? Not many, I'm thinking. I don't know really too many government officials, frankly, that understands money, how it's created and supported, and the difference between fiat money and sound money. So I definitely would say that there are people in charge that know not just what I know, but more than what I know. But I don't think that's true with the vast majority, honestly. I really don't, because I've spoken to enough of them, and I see the choices they make, even for themselves. But having said that, we are copying. Yeah, we are definitely copying part of the strategy. Why not? Right? Wealth never disappears. It just shifts location, and the goal is to have it shift your way for a change. And MBG 7470 asks, question on lines of reportability. I bought from you when at your last place. Can those purchases be traced by government? No. What I told you on the reportability is true everywhere. Everywhere. And thank you. Thank you for believing in me then. Thank you for believing in me now. And Mary Jane Camilleri 3003 asks, that big 100-ounce bar of silver would work if you are selling directly to industry. Yes, it's just not invisible, right? I mean, it's silver. I love it, right? And this is not my bar, by the way. I will tell you this is not my bar. Some of these smaller bars, they are mine. I actually borrowed this from a friend so that I could use it for that video, because I personally don't own anything this size. That's not always been true, although I don't think I ever bought a 100-ounce bar, but I did buy much larger bars. And you're right, if I took it to a smelter, or like we wouldn't have any trouble liquidating it to our wholesalers. It's just if you're going to execute the strategy, because for me, silver is about barterability. And so I need a variety of sizes. And frankly, if I had to choose between this 1/10 of an ounce and this 100-ounce bars and have the same amount of weight, 100% of the time I want dimes. Why? Number one, I can stick it in my pocket. It's not going to pull my pants down. But number two, it is easier to put 2 dimes together than to break a quarter in half. How can I get a piece off of this without shaving it? That's not going to happen. So yes, if you're selling it directly to industry, and you certainly could, I mean, we could certainly make that happen for you if that's what you chose to do. But for usability and executing the strategy, this just doesn't work very well. That's all. And I don't know that the person that loaned me this for today, I don't know what that person is going to do with it. They may just keep it in this form, or they may choose to convert it into more usable silver. And at the broker stacker asks, when I first started stacking, 100-ounce bars were going for $1,800. $18 an ounce. Yep. There you go. That goes back to this necklace that I'm wearing that I bought at 87 and paid $350 for it. And right now, with where the spot market, because this happens to be 18 karat gold, Italian, and probably in terms of dollars now, somewhere around $8,000. Is it the necklace that's changed? It's the same necklace. It's the same bar of silver. I mean, I don't know when he bought it, but it was a long time ago that he bought it. Maybe back when you bought that at $1,800 would not surprise me. Is it the bar that changed? Is it the necklace that changed? No, it's the dollars that changed. And remember, we've got a devaluation trade that's been going on and picking up steam. That's what this is. That's a lot of what's happening. Thank you for that. Absolutely. And Wolf 728 asked, any chance of talking to Martin Armstrong? We are working on that, actually. I know I talked to Natalie, and so he is very knowledgeable and interesting, and you like his Socrates computer program that predicts future events as related to economics. So we are, and maybe we can just nudge Natalie to see where she's at with that, but I know she was working on that. And it could have already happened and we just don't know about it yet because it depends on where she puts it out in the schedule. So yes, Wolf, we're working on that. And Ernest DeBella asks, if you have to lose your pants in the market, let it be from a 100-ounce bar if silver is pulling them off. I maybe would like a 100-ounce bar of gold a little better. But yeah, I think you're right. And George Bawden asks, Lynette, have you seen Washington State has put a 10% sales tax on gold and silver? Guess they don't want you to have it, do they? But let's say that you've got a sales tax on it when you're buying it. And let's even say that you have to pay a tax on it when you sell it because you've made gains, inflated gains on it. Part of the strategy is making sure you are made whole. Now, look, it's not rocket science. If you're buying it like you bought, the person bought this 100-ounce bar for $1,800 right now at $84 an ounce, even without any markup or whatever, just looking at that. So $1,800 to $84,000, and then you have to pay taxes on that. What I'm trying to show you is because of how severely undervalued gold and silver is, we recoup any of those taxes, any of those losses, anything. Governments, and not just governments, but corporations sit there and talk about how they're going to introduce you to things much more than they actually talk about the policies. So when did IRAs come about? 1970s. And they sat down and they said, if we set this up and people have to pay their income tax from it, then they're probably not going to be as likely to liquidate their retirement, right? So now you're looking at this, you've got $100,000 or whatever you've got in an IRA or 401k or 403b or wherever it is. And you're saying to yourself, well, wait a minute, I don't want to pay taxes on that. That's the plan. So you make the choice to leave it inside the system, which means that they can do anything they want to it. They can dictate to you how much tax you're actually going to pay on it because, to someone's earlier point, they can change the rules. They can change the laws. So they're looking at all of this wealth in these retirement plans, and they're calculating how they're going to get their big piece of the inflated pie that they created. I mean, it's truly a genius, evil genius, no doubt about it, and it ticks me off, which is why I work so hard for you, but it's a genius system. Devalue the currency, push the other assets up in terms of the currency, and then charge you taxes on that inflation. Create the inflation. This is like, I don't know, a gazillion in taxation, right? You're paying income taxes, you're paying sales taxes, you're paying gains taxes, you're paying taxi. Is this okay with you? That really is the question. When you're alone, when you're not listening to anybody else, but you look in the mirror and you have to ask yourself, is this okay with me? And if your answer is yes, let them do it. Let them abuse you. But if your answer is no, then you have to say, if not me, who? If not now, when? We've got this sound money movement. It is already evolving. And it took a very vocal 3% of the population to create the Revolutionary War. How about we have another revolution in money and we take our power back? 3% of the people will do that. We need to do that. So yeah, they don't want you to own gold and silver. Why would they? Because as soon as you do, they can't inflate your wealth away. Washington State has been a bit challenging over the years. So I question how much they care about their population if they want you to stay away from the only thing that can really protect you. Do I think they fully understand it? No, I don't. I don't think they fully understand it, but yeah. And Moxum3854 asked, subbed because I love when you say physical. Thank you so much. I don't care why you sub, just please give us a like, have this conversation. We've got to get this message out. And I will say physical lots more times because I like that word too. Do you remember Olivia Newton-John's song, Let's Get Physical, Physical? Yeah, well, let's get physical. I'd sing, but I don't want to break the microphone. And Bergamot Bear 11 asks, they will make a state-backed digital fiat. It will need a neutral bridge asset, a so-called bancor note that no country can control and can't inflate. And yeah, I mean, honest to goodness, there's no limitations on who can create stable coins, right? It can be a state, it can be a corporation, it can be a government, it doesn't matter. But if it's not backed by redeemable gold, then we're going to just get more of the same or even worse, especially when that's invisible. They'll take it right up to that wire and we will be fully controlled. And if they don't like what you say, they don't like what you do, they don't like what you think, boom, you're cut out of the system. You're going to have to comply. This is why it's not just the gold and the silver. That's got to be your foundation, but it's the rest of the mantra too. Food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. And in community, everybody brings what they have. You know, I have gold and silver. I have some talents. I mean, I can lay irrigation. I have done that. I know how to do that. Do I want to? No, I do not. But if you're part of the community, you're bringing your talent to lay that irrigation. Great. I'm growing food. Great. Right? That's what a community does. They come together. Everybody brings what they have, and it supports the group as a whole. And now you are a lot more independent. The foundation has to be sound money, but you got to have food and water because you can't live without those. Chad Wolfschlestelgelstein-Howe. I'm sorry, 5957. No, 9697. I own gold and I promise I don't make the rules. No, but we need to make the rules, don't we? I own gold and I don't get to make the rules either at this point, but I'm fighting for our right to make those rules. If we have enough people owning gold and silver, we can make the rules because we'll retain our freedom and our choices. That's really what gold and silver is. It represents freedom and choices. And Margaret Valentine 5957 asks, please explain your real goal to sell money back in the system and how does it give the public its power back? Please explain. Okay, so my real goal is not to sell money back in the system. My real ultimate goal is to get redeemable gold back in the global monetary system again, like it once was when we had a gold certificate. So you could have this in your wallet, and if you didn't like what the government was doing, you'd walk into any bank with this and you'd walk out with this, right? What gold does is it requires fiscal responsibility. So therefore, if you walked into a bank and you pulled gold out of the system, then governments, when they were deciding how much debt they're going to grow and what they're going to do, well, they would have to pay attention to that. Number one, there'd be less gold in the system, so therefore they could grow less debt, period. Number two, if they knew that you were paying attention to them and you had the ability to pull the gold out of the system and create restrictions, then they're going to be a lot more conscious of the choices that they are going to make because they're not going to want you to do that. So they can spin it differently or simply make different choices. So, oops. And it really is just this simple, and they're doing it again too. That's the adoption piece, right? So in the beginning, there was this, the gold and the silver coins. Then they came out with this, and I also have a silver certificate in this somewhere or other. I don't know. I saw it here. No, that's not it. Well, anyway, doesn't matter. They did the same thing with silver, with a silver certificate. So people got used to that, but at the same time that you had this gold certificate, they also came out with this Federal Reserve note. The Federal Reserve is a private corporation. A note is a debt instrument. But they look at how much this looks like this. And they were allowed for 20 years to be used in the system to buy anything at the same stated level of purchasing power. $20, $20, and $20. Today, I don't spend much on this. So I probably paid somewhere around $5 or $6 for this $20 gold certificate because I don't spend much on that stuff. This thing, well, let's see, what's 3 times 20? This $20 bill has officially 60 cents worth of purchasing power. That's what it really represents. But this, even at the manipulated spot market, is probably somewhere around 4,500 right now. I don't know. I don't have that up right away. But at the spot market, I don't know. Which would you rather have? And so when you're asking me this, if you get used to something, this is the forced adoption that we're going through right now, right? Where you don't realize that they're forcing it, but the banks have already tokenized all of the deposits. They've already set up a lot of the stablecoin infrastructure. That infrastructure is mostly, not completely yet, in place. And even though the cryptocurrencies have been lagging in the markets, Yeah, that's not stopping any governments or any of the corporations that are putting this in place. So we get used to all three things at the same time. Then when these two things went away, people thought, well, nothing had changed. When in reality, you're no longer working for sound money. You're no longer working for a real asset that is demanded in every single sector of the global economy. This is global money. It has the same level of purchasing power, even more in some places, everywhere and anywhere in the world. This, nobody wants it anymore. It's de-dollarization. 60 cents officially worth of purchasing power. See what I'm saying? So, the question, the real goal is not to sell money back into the system. It's to get sound money redeemable back in the system so that if you or I do not like what the government is doing, we can vote with our wallets and say, nope, you do not have that, my okay with that. That's how we take our control back. And if that didn't explain it, please let me know and I'll try and explain it a different way. And Gator 99 says, congratulations to you and your team. Thank you so much. On 100,000 subs. I enjoy your content and look forward to many more of it. Oh no, more of it. Many blessings, Z. Thank you so much. And I appreciate it because I really do. Most of the time, a lot of this work, well, all the PowerPoints and all that happens over the weekend. And I'm happy to do it because I have you in mind every time I'm doing it. And I constantly try and do it better, make things more clear, etc. So I appreciate that you like my content because I'm working on it. And hopefully you see me getting better and better and better at it because I'll never stop that. And J. Hines 4624 says, are any of you familiar with BYOB, Be Your Own Banker, and Nelson Ash Institute? Do you use your specialized engineered policy, your own money tax-free? Well, I can't say that I am familiar with the Nelson Ash Institute or how I would be able to use my own money tax-free unless you're talking about like this. These are the bills that have my image on it. They're not good for anything other than shooting out of my money gun. But if he's creating his own currency and then creating his own little group of people that agree to take it, it still is based on confidence in one little area. Let's see what that is. I am not familiar with it, but we can look at it. And Magic Moon asks, am sitting back watching the price of gold goes nuts. And where is that? What happened to my Lorna Doones? Oh, there they are. They took my Lorna Doones away. No, don't ever eat these things. They're horrible. But to the moon on a Lorna Doone, which anybody that's my age is going to recognize that saying. I didn't create it. And there really are Lorna Doones, but they have a whole bunch of garbage in them. Don't eat them. But I like the box. And Bergamot Bear 11 says XRP is pushing an amendment to its system that will replace all the smart contract systems in a way that governments and banks can actually use. So I said, who's going to survive? Probably XRP. I can't guarantee that. But what I can tell you is they'll be a whole lot cheaper when it's time for us to convert. And will not completely convert. But yeah, the systems be put in place whether you like it or not. So we can do nothing and allow them to have full control over our lives and our choices and our children, or we can fight back. I'm the youngest of 7. I'm used to fighting. I'm used to having a voice even when people don't want to give me a voice. I'm not in agreement with it. So I'm not going to do nothing about it. I'm going to do everything I can about it. That's the point of the Sound Money movement. That's the point of all the videos. That's the point of all the work that I do. Not okay with me to take our freedoms away. I think it's horrendous that my grandchildren have less freedom than I have. It's horrendous. And it'll get worse than this if we let it. Let's not let it. We have a choice. Let's use that choice. We have power. Let's come together and make that power big enough that we have our choices back. And Margaret Valentine 5957 says, tell us how $2,000 fundamental value and suggest that I need more details. Please understand I can get it. I just need it broken down in simple terms. Let me see if, because I didn't do it in this, but can you hand me that? I did do a little bit of fundamental value work, and understand that I'm doing it for all of the assets because it's important to understand that even as we're moving through. Sorry about this. But, I mean, if I know I have it, thank you, then I might as well show it to you if you're asking me a question about it. So I'm going to end this slideshow, and I'm going to go in, and I think, yes, I'm doing something this week with the teenage tycoons. And so I know that I did fundamental value in here. Okay. I'm trying to open that up. Okay. It took me to the very beginning. Come on. Tum-ta-dum-ta-dum. Here it is. Okay. So if you pull the screen up, please. Okay. This is how you get the fundamental value of gold and silver. Look, there is a way to determine the true fundamental value of every single asset that there is on the planet. And it kind of works like this. And I know that it can be a little bit confusing because the hardest part is determining what is the single most important function of any asset that it is. That's the very first question that you ask. So when I ask the question of that, in my mind, the single most important function of gold and silver is to hold my purchasing power intact. Okay, that makes it easy, right? I want to maintain my value. That's what gold and silver does anyway. But how do I know what that is? Okay, well, this is fiat money. This is sound money. And you start with the primary currency metal, which is gold, because that's what they revalue this against constantly. They want to do it at 2% a year. That's their 2% inflation target. They want to do it at 2% a year because at 2% you don't make a change in how you think about money or spend money. You just take on more debt and more debt and more debt, hoping that it'll regain some of its value, which of course it never does. This is used in one place and it's created from debt. So that's critically important to understand. This is created from debt. This is sound money. It's used in every sector of the global economy. So it has a lot more functionality and much bigger demand. But it's also physical. They can create as much of this as they want to. There are no limitations on that. And they do. They just create more and more and more debt. And I'll come back to that in a second. But with gold or silver or anything physical, in any form, it doesn't really matter. You know, even this mug, okay? It doesn't matter. As soon as you get physical, there is a finite amount of it. So, how do I know what the true value of an ounce of gold? I mean, isn't Wall Street going to tell me the truth? No, Wall Street is not. That is a trading value. They'll call that intrinsic value. I did a piece on the difference between intrinsic and fundamental value, which you can watch, but this is how you get the calculation. Since this stuff is created from this, then through the first quarter of 2025, that was the most current data I could pull on that, global debt was $324 trillion. That created this. So we use the debt as a proxy for all of the money that was created, whether it's in the US or it's in China or it's in England. Doesn't matter where it is. This is the global debt, at least through the first quarter of 2025. Now, according to gold.org, and according to the Department of the Interior, who runs a report on an annual basis of how much gold, the Department of the Interior, how much gold and silver are yet in the ground, right? So gold is indestructible. We can account for about 98% of all of the gold that has ever been mined in any form. So it can be in any of these forms. It doesn't really matter. Think of the Queen of England and the tiaras and the jewelry. We can account for all of that gold since it's indestructible. We can't do the same thing with silver because silver does get used up. It can be destroyed. But based upon that, that's how many ounces of gold are known to exist in the entire world. What is hundreds, thousands, millions, billions. So roughly 9 billion ounces of gold. Well, you just divide the amount of the debt by the number of ounces, and that gives you 38,126.97 per ounce of gold. So I rounded it to 40. Gets you close enough. Does that make sense? Could you let me know if we're, and then I'll move on from there. I just want to make sure that I made that clear. Yes? No? Yes? Okay. So that's how you get how much the fundamental value at this moment in time, or at least through the first quarter of 2025, was in terms of dollars on a global basis. Now, originally was a 20th of an ounce of gold, this itty bitty teeny weeny little 20th of an ounce of gold, to $1 silver dollar. So that is a 20-to-1 ratio. I think right now we're maybe somewhere around 54-to-1, but that is a 20-to-1 ratio. So presuming at some point we go back to that 20-to-1 ratio, which we could, historically we have, and I know I have the gold-silver ratio somewhere, but if we divide that 38,126.97 by 20, that puts us at $1,906.35. So it's based on that 20-to-1 ratio. I don't know that it's going to get back there again. Historically, it does have a tendency to do that, so it's very probable, possible, but I use that because that's what it was originally, right? Back in 1913, 1900, 20th of an ounce of gold to one silver dollar. When they legalized the Federal Reserve, or to $1 actually. When they legalized the Federal Reserve, now this 20th of an ounce of gold actually backed $2.40. So it would be two silver dollars plus, a quarter, a dime, and a nickel. Okay? That's their flexible money. Digital money is even more flexible and it's very fast and you can transfer it so easily. That means that it's worth even less, quite honestly. So there you go. Also, this next slide, just to kind of show you what an overnight revaluation looks like, right? So they suppress until they do that overnight revaluation, and they revalue the fiat money that has no value. It's used in one place against gold money that is used in every place. And that's the kind of behavior that you see. So if you think right now that it's going to the moon on a Lorna Doone, you ain't seen nothing yet. You ain't seen nothing yet. Let me just kind of glance. There might be some other fun stuff for me to, there's that, but that's not really meh. Oh, here is the U.S. debt, total public debt, right? That's how money's created in the system. There you go. This doesn't even actually reflect all of the debt. It's just that what they're reporting for public debt. And it does not reflect any of the derivatives. A derivative is a big fat bet. You cannot convert it into whatever the underlying asset is, but it is a big fat bet. And so whatever I'm telling you, you can multiply that. I don't know how much leverage exactly, but I can tell you that a lot of the leverage in the derivative market is 1,000 to 1. So if that's where we are when they do that overnight revaluation, and if they were to do that today, that goes, multiply that times 1,000. Just throw a few more zeros on the end of it. It's just that I know I don't put much value in this. As unfortunately some people around me go, ah! But honestly, I do think differently about money than probably anybody else that I know. So hopefully that explained it. And do know that I have that kind of detailed and more explanation that I will do on the other income producing assets, which again is part of the strategy. So it isn't just getting you in, and understand, this is the whole point. The first thing that we do is, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? And we want to make sure that you have the right tools for your goals. That could be a 100-ounce bar of silver, or it could be a whole bunch of variety of sizes. I don't know. If this is just going back to the dealer, I don't know, right? But it's got to be customized to what you are trying to accomplish. That's why we start with your goals. And Tater Skins asks, I have a 1 gram bar of silver and 2 Coca-Cola half-gram gold bars. My grandma gave them to me in my birthday cards. I would have more, but my grandma died. Yep. And honestly, that's what I like to do for my grandchildren as well. My mother was great at that as well. I've been in the business for so long. So, yep. But you can still have more Tater Skins. You just have to get them for yourself. But she started you on the right road. So let's just continue that. We can do that. Call us. We'll help you. And Mr. Peteroni 1, hello, Lynette. When you say sell your gold to buy other assets, do you mean privately with the individual Is that even possible? Or sell it to fiat and immediately buy real estate? I'm going to say yes to both, because any individual that understands what's happening to the currency, and to be perfectly honest with you, by the time you're doing this transaction, everybody's going to be very aware of what's happening to the currency. So if you are indeed dealing with an individual, like if you were dealing with me, I would rather you pay me in gold. You know, I can verify the value and all of that, but I would much rather get paid in gold. And in reality, there are some things that I pay for with gold and silver if the person is willing to accept it, which doesn't happen. They're still more keen on this garbage. I don't know why, but because it's what we're used to. But that's not 100% true. So if you find an individual that you're going to buy a piece of property from or an asset from, and there's a possibility of doing a direct exchange, gold for that asset, that's the way you're going to do it. If, however, you're buying it from a corporation, then you're going to have to do it with fiat dollars. And so we will be there to convert those into whatever, if they're digital or however they are, we'll convert it into your tool of barter, and bam, you're going to convert it just like that. So it'll be boom, boom. So that's why I say both. And Humble Noble says, why don't longtime silver holders start selling at a premium deal to some? I got in an argument. Well, before I read that other part, I don't know what you're about to say, but I'll say because they're smart and they understand that this is not the top of silver and it's not really a trade. There are some people that are certainly doing that, but I don't use gold and silver as a trade at all. I use it as an insurance policy because I've been studying currency life cycles since 1987 and I'm really clear on where we are. But let's go to the rest of it. I got in an argument with a dealer about this. It says sealer, but he probably meant dealer about this. Said it's for value retention. That's why they go by spot price anyways. Okay, I'm going to read the whole thing just to make sure that I understand what you're asking me. Why don't longtime silver holders start selling at a premium deal to some? I got in an argument with the dealer about this and said it's for value retention. That's why they go by spot price anyways. Well, spot price is used to give it, it's really a trading vehicle because in the U.S. particularly, most of what's happening in the metals markets and in all the markets is done via contracts, right? So the spot price actually reflects the contract of buying and selling. But we've already started in the transition, and we're now a year into that start of the paper markets dictating the price to the physical markets dictating the price, which is what I think you're referring to when you're talking about that premium. Because in other markets like the Shanghai exchange, they're trading, the silver is trading for roughly $8 to $10, or at least that was the recent article that I read about it, above Wall Street's spot price. So if that's what you're referring to, I'm not selling my silver, right? And if this person that loaned me this bar of silver makes the choice, entirely up to him, and I won't pass judgment one way or the other, but if the person that has this bar chooses, they could just liquidate it outright and get that premium and then convert it into more usable silver. I don't know that what choice they're going to make. They've been holding gold and silver. These also belong to that same person. They've been holding these for a very long time. The rest of this is mine, and I'm not liquidating it. Why? Because I'm very clear that this is a currency life cycle issue, and that even at these prices, these manipulated market prices, even at $84 an ounce on silver, $4,500 an ounce on gold, severely undervalued. So why would you sell it? Because since there's a finite amount of it, if you sell it, you may not be able to buy it back again. Or you might need, let's say you're trying to accomplish a specific goal, and so you lay in junk silver, but when you liquidate it and then you go to buy it back again, I mean, there have been times when junk silver has not been available. And I can tell you absolutely that I have some pieces, they're in the vault, but I have quite a bit that was available back in 2002, 3, 4, etc., that are simply not available anymore. So you can do it to capture this, but do you know when that's going to completely go in the tankaroo? I don't. Like that straight up line that you just saw in that chart that I showed you, there's no warning on that. And I will tell you quite honestly, Shearson was my alma mater. That's where I became a stockbroker, and I appreciate all of the teachings and everything. So you know, when they were in jeopardy in 2007, 2008, I was watching that like a hawk. And not just them, but everything that was happening, because I was watching the whole great financial crisis unfold. And I could not have told you even 1 minute before Lehman went out that it went out. So I'm not ever looking to gain a little pickup in terms of dollars here or there. I'm not a trader. I am a long-term strategist. So I buy it because it supports what I'm trying to accomplish, and then I don't worry about it because I haven't accomplished my goals yet. So I'm still definitely in the accumulation phase, but, and this is really truly what makes us, lots of stuff make us different than anybody else out there. We have an exit strategy. We have an entrance strategy, and we have an exit strategy. You want a plan, or you just want to live on hopium? Because that's not a very good plan. I also find it really interesting, and I won't mention names, but there are definitely companies that used to poo-poo and give me a hard time around the collectibles, and guess what they're touting now? Shocking. Oh, well. Okay. So I think we have time for one more. And Rocky J 55 says, we pay 23% more today for most things that we did in 2019. Ta-dum. Yeah, we do. And it's not and that's in terms of dollars, but in terms of gold and silver, you don't. You pay less. Okie doke. So would pre-64 U.S. silver coins be considered money or a collectible? Well, they are money because they were money that were used in circulation and they're easily recognizable. But I think that would be considered a collectible because just like the pre-33s, I'm sorry, I know I said one more and then I kind of glanced up, saw that, and decided to answer it. But yeah, considered money, considered a collectible. I think that gives you an extra layer of protection. I mean, here is a slabbed silver dollar. It happens to be 1925 in a mint state 64. It's actually a pretty nice coin. I mean, I don't really accumulate it in this way other than if I'm going to give it to my grandson because he loses his mind when I give him slab silver. He likes slabbed gold too, but this one, yeah, it would be considered a collectible. I think it gives you the same level of protection, kind of like the difference between my raw gold, which for me is my savings account, and my slabbed gold, right? So all different ways to buy it. We'll let you know when that video is coming out. Not right away because you guys know I'm going to be going to Australia, actually, in March. And so we need to keep all of these things going. So until next we meet, thank you so much for showing up today. Thank you so much for helping us get to 100,000. Share, share, share. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. And remember, too, about the dime cards. Where did that go? Oh, yeah. I just loaded up this nice little pouch with these dime cards. So keep in mind, we're going to keep this going. Whatever our cost is, that's what you're going to pay for them. If you are a client or you become a client, the first one is free. And on the one side, you have a piece of junk silver, a dime. And on the other side, you have a new one. So, yeah, when we did this was August 27th. That dime cost us $2.78. Now, I think, didn't we say that it was over $5 now? Right? So going up, probably more than that now. But yeah, get your dime cards, help your family, help your friends understand the difference between fiat money and sound money. And make sure you look on the edge, because on the sound money, you don't see that coppery line, but you do on the junk. I don't mean junk silver. This is classified as junk silver, but this is real silver. This is garbage. It's just a new dime. So until next we meet, let's make a positive difference for everybody in this world. Let's get sound money back in the system. What a concept. And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye and Happy New Year.